So as we said, this afternoon session is going to be about identifying those aims. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go through exactly what an aim is, how we want to think about it, and then you are going to spend time identifying 2 to 3 aims for your priority. And then we're going to spend time thinking about it as a group. So we'll actually be asking you to give feedback on those aims so that you have an ability and a chance to add your own voice as a task force member to the direction of the aims for the other priorities as well. So we want to keep that in mind when we are working and discussing. Hopefully the discussions that we had to craft the priority statement has really helped you kind of get a feel for the current state, what's emerging, and what might be those sub-priorities for the next 5 years. All right, so as Miriam talked about, an aim, really think about, I always think about it as like a bullseye, right? Like we want to aim for something. So that's that directional piece. Do we want to improve, increase? Do we want to decrease, bring down? Do we want to maintain, enforce, standardize? What is the direction of the change of a piece of a very large pie for the next 5 years? So we showed this already as an example. So I'm going to take it to our acquiring and retaining talent, because they were already identifying a lot of good things that are happening in your district around that. But there's also a gap in terms of staff diversity. So one of their aims might be to increase the number of hires and the retention of diverse staff. So a lot of times the construction, the actual writing of an aim is pretty simple. It's identifying what are those 2 to 3 things that we're going to be highly focused on for this priority to move us forward and get us in a better place in 5 years. So this is another example. This is from a district that worked with us. Their priority was high quality teaching and learning. They identified 3 aims. One was to enhance teaching and learning by effectively blending technology in the classroom. So they wanted a laser focus on that blended technology to enhance high quality teaching and learning. The other one was improve student performance in math, English, language arts, with the focus on decreasing existing gaps. So a little bit more specific, but we know exactly what they're going to do and focus on around that. And then the aim is, the last one is to increase resources for safe, nurturing, and engaging learning environments for all. So again, you can see how they broke a high, big bucket area into 3 things that they're gonna laser focus on. And then the district and schools wrote goals to say this is where we'll exactly be. They will be able to measure the progress. They want measurable SMARTY goals under each of these to be even more specific about what they were going to do to address these aims. I'm going to pause for any questions.
Are these sequential? Like you start with improving the student performance and then you do it by enhancing teaching and then by increasing resources?
That's a great question. One, we don't have to worry about that in this group today, which is great. Because that's very much a implementation action piece, right? And that time bound, the goals will be time bound. But to answer your question, so 1, we don't have to worry about it. Yes, not our jobs, always nice. 2, not today. Okay. 2 is they might be, or they might be happening simultaneously. So that's going to really, the goals are going to be very specific because since we do SMARTY goals, they're going to be time bound. So the district might say, okay, the first thing that we have to do in order to address increasing resources for safe, nurturing, engaging learning environments for all is make certain improvements to our facilities. I'm just making this up. So that might be a time bound of by the end of school year 2025, we're going to have this thing, foundation piece number 1. Then we're going to be doing these 2 other foundation goals throughout the next 5 years together at the same time. Mhm. Any other questions?
Can I just add one thing? Sorry, I know I need my mic. So I just want to draw your attention to something, right? So this is what I was saying earlier. These are not goals, because if I look at that, someone comes and says, okay, yeah, we increased resources for safe, nurturing, and engaging learning environment. That was our goal. I can't measure that. There's no way to track that. So that's why that next phase is drilling down by how much. Because I could have a district that says, yeah, I gave an extra $1,000, I increased resources. That's not what you're getting at, right? So that's where we want you to think today as you're building your aims. They're still high level enough. Someone is still going to drill down based on the data to say what are those targets and those benchmarks as we track forward.
Yeah. And when does that happen?
Can you repeat your question?
And when does that drilling down happen? I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page.
So the goal setting that your team will be doing tomorrow with leaders, with district leaders and school-based leaders, is really digging into the data to figure out where are we right now? Here's what we heard. Where are we right now? What are those benchmarks? What is the target that's going to be attainable but also ambitious? And then taking it back to this group, right, Anne, to share back out to say, okay, does this hit the mark? Is there anything that we're missing?
Okay, I knew that. I want to make sure everyone else knew that.
Yes. Yes, because honestly, you don't want to sit there and look at someone else's data and dig through all the quant and the qual components today. That's not really going to be your role. Your role is to really inform, here's where you should be looking. This is where we think this is the area you need to focus on as a community.
All right, so how are we going to do this? And again, this is some of what we've already talked about, but in addressing the aims, to be able to identify, okay, what are those 2 or 3 things that we want to focus on achieving in the next 5 years? That's when we're going to go to our data in our current state. And a lot of you have already addressed these. So again, I can start to see what the aims are going to be for some of your groups just by listening to the conversations this morning about the current state, where you're at, how we're defining this priority. I know that we have a beautiful roadmap already written that gives a lot of insight into this is the direction that we're going. This is where the gaps are. These are the things that need to be addressed now so that we can get to other places at the next cycle of strategic planning. So you want to think about when looking at the infographics, when drawing on your experiences and listening to some of the district staff at your table, what are our overall trends? How do they compare? What does it look like year after year? Historically, where have we been? What are the differences that we're seeing? And where are the gaps? And then are there certain disproportionalities that we need to address? Now, again, it's not going to be super granular because the district and the staff is going to come in and bring that granular level to get really specific measurable goals tomorrow that they'll then present back out to you for your feedback. But you want to start asking some questions to identify what are the gaps and then what are the priorities that we need to address for the next strategic planning process. Any questions about this? So now you get to do it. So we're going to get into our groups. We're going to go around like we did. My general feeling is that most of you have some type of sketch of where those aims are going to go. I see some nods, so am I off? Okay. So what I anticipate is in the next 20 to 30 minutes, we'll have some constructed aims for each table to share out. That's going to be good because then we're going to want to use the next hour or so to really give feedback on each other, and again, be able to get any other thoughts and opinions from the rest of the group on the different priorities. So for this afternoon session, I hope is that our time can be spent in the discussion of the identified aims for the group, rather than this morning where we really needed to huddle together and kind of work through where we were at with each priority and defining it and understanding it. So that is going to be how we structure this afternoon. So you're going to huddle in your own groups. Again, look at that infographic. If you need your QR code, we can get back to it if you lost it over lunch. And then you'll come up with 2 to 3 aims, and we will get them on chart paper so that we can then present them to the group and have some discussion and give some feedback.
I think the one thing that I'd want to emphasize here as well is that it's going to be really important to check yourselves, right? Sometimes we come in and we're like, well, yeah, that should be, we need to increase A, B, and C, but there's literally no data to justify why you're increasing that other than I have a hunch, right? So I want you to check yourselves in your group and question, push and pull with each other. Like, where is the data for that? Do we have data? And if we don't, it could just be a matter of, I suspect or I've heard. Can district team dig in a little bit on this? Do we have any data related to this? So that's going to be really important, is to think through your why based on why you're identifying that specific aim.
So we have equitable resources and educational programs. And if you could come up and do the same process so that everyone can see and hear you.
Hi, everyone. We went last time, we went last, so I figured we'd go first this time. Also, it's a tactic so that if you're better than me, we won't know until after. So our goal here is the equitable resources and educational programs, and we really felt our divergence happen in our group, which focused on the kind of 3 aims, and one of them is an incomplete sentence. So we need to increase schools' capacity to assess and respond to the unique learning styles of students for future academic and career success. Our second one is to increase coordination and partnerships for child readiness. That is both leaning on our external partners, and we're really talking about readiness in both the way of what does it mean to be ready before you start school, and how are you ready for future possibilities, and then increase a sense of student, family, and educator belonging within a school community. So does anyone in my group, do we have anything else that I'm missing in that? We're kind of last up.
Equitable resources, is that the one?
Yes, we're equitable resources and education programs. Yes, sorry. I forgot to write it on the top. So everyone else write it on the top of yours.
Okay, is everyone able to figure out how to type in a grow or glow?
Are we supposed to write what we wrote in the boxes? Or are we doing like?
Nope, so this is for feedback, just to capture it. So often we share out and we have great feedback, but we're not actually capturing it. So this is a way to be able to capture it and go back. So let me see that. I can actually help you navigate. So you're saying, got any ideas? Is everyone seeing that? Got ideas. Okay, so you hit on that idea, and then it takes you to the culture and climate with the Post-it. And then if you hit on that, you can go down to the equitable resources. So and then you'll be under equitable resources. And then when you hit the yellow Post-it, you'll be able to type in something. So I'm going to do this as a test. Oh, perfect.
I love the mic, but part of the challenge in this work is many of you I know would like to be in many groups. This gives you an opportunity to offer some feedback that may help this as this moves towards goal setting. Think about the larger priority, right? Equitable resources, and they have a set of aims. There was a lot of good dialogue there about what equity looks like and what equitable access and resources look like. You may have some ideas for them to consider as this gets processed through to the level of goal setting and action setting down the road. So a good opportunity for you to, again, offer glows and grows and additions. Just because I heard several people in a couple of the groups, there's a lot of overlap.
So if you're seeing it, but you don't know how to add, in the top right corner, there is a light bulb. Click on that. Then it automatically takes you to the culture and climate section. Click on the culture and climate box, and then you can select the equitable resources and educational programs, and then you can see the post and ad. Did you do it? Awesome. Okay, so some of the comments that were getting a glow, they liked the coordination and partnership to support learning. Always important, we know that by research. Tapping into local businesses for resources. We also like the focus on kindergarten to college, to career and college readiness. Ecosystem approach. Does somebody want to expand on that if they're willing to? Yeah.
I guess it's thinking about utilizing the larger community, not just the district, in achieving these goals.
Okay, so that really resounded with us and really thinking about how do we make sure to use the community for that equitable programming. We have increased family engagements. Equity doesn't mean equal. How do we support all schools to ensure equity? Yep, that got 3 votes already. Might we also improve learning outcomes for all students? So that's already got 3 votes. So anybody want to expand on some of their thoughts or what they'd like to see on that? Maybe I could ask the group, is there a reason why, what do you think about including the improved learning outcomes for students? And the reason I give it back to you is because I know that we are wrestling with the word of outcomes, so maybe you can speak a little bit to that.
Could you repeat the question before you hand that to me?
Yeah, so there was a question of maybe aim about improving learning outcomes. And I know that the group specifically was wrestling with the word outcomes. So if you wanted to talk a little bit about that suggestion and then about your discussion around the adding in learning outcomes and using that language.
Yes, so we did actually have quite a bit of conversation around the learning outcomes and figuring out a way to make that aim. And realistically, if to be fully transparent, the other reason why we didn't have that was just a time issue, because we did talk a lot about outcomes and needing to figure out a way to do that. We got distracted on our level of not going too far into a goal setting and keep going back up to aim, and even our partner group next to us made fun of us for talking a little bit about goals. So I think it's an important element of it, and I think it was just a time and concentration issue. So not a great answer, but.
So it sounds like it will probably be added and fleshed out. Excellent.
Just in overhearing that group, I heard just some lanes. So access to, use of, and then the impact of. Like those are, maybe as we move toward goal setting, those are helpful frames.
I just want to point out that there was 7 votes already for that coordination partnership of kindergarten to career and college readiness. All right, anybody else want to speak out specifically about what they wrote here, or if they haven't had a chance to post it before we move on to the next group? All right, so what we're going to do with these is we're going to capture these, and tomorrow when we come back to dive into the goals, we'll also incorporate this to bring in and further define and draft the aims. Any chance acquiring and retaining talent want to go, since they're right up there in the middle?
And if you all don't mind coming up here, just again for the camera and recording, whomever's going to be the spokesperson. That's what you're calling that, debating. That's good. That's what my family calls that sort of action as well.
Okay, so acquire and retain talent, aims. First and foremost, close the diversity gap between staff and students. The why is very simple. Kids need someone to mirror. The studies over and over again, it's important. We also want to look at investing in the development and the growth and development of all staff. People need to feel that there is an opportunity, if they want to take the opportunity. And are there pathways? Have it ever been spelled out to our staff? You know, here, you start here, and you can go here, and you go here, and you can go here, or you can go this way or that way. I know the corporations I've worked at, all of them have a career path. Is there a career path for our employees, whether it's teachers or paralegals, paraprofessionals, et cetera? So the next, we're also looking, hold on, I just want to, okay, that was the fourth. Thought something had, transparency of hiring practices. Apparently, people don't know what the decision-making is, how people are hired, and if they don't know it, they make it up. So making it transparent will help retain and get more. Also, we thought develop and grow our own future teachers at WPS. Do we have a pipeline? You know, we want a staff that represents our students. And we know that out there, most of the kids graduating school are white. We have a diverse population here. We've got kids who need to be challenged. Can we create an environment where A, they see teachers that are happy and want to be here, and they want to come work with those folks? So is there something we can do to get our own students to be our next generation of teachers? That's all she wrote.
Beyond the posting of your comments, Rosenglitz, any questions, comments?
So just to reiterate, so I see a couple grows and glows coming in. Anybody want to comment as they type some feedback, any initial reactions that you want to say out loud or put out here? I see a couple are accidentally pasting in the culture and climate. That's okay, you can keep those there, we'll still capture them. We're seeing they like growing your own talent. And there's a glow with 6 votes already about closing the diversity gap. I think that we've all acknowledged that that is a gap, like in many districts, that we really want to address in this strategic planning period. Equitable hiring practices too. So also thinking about how do we get to the same, how are we going to increase that staff diversity? There needs to be some thoughts to how we go about hiring. Another vote for developing our own, a glow of transparency around hiring practice through the communication, pipeline to profession. Any reactions to these? Anybody who would like to ask any questions for clarification? Okay, please keep adding in, because we do want to make sure that we document any additional thoughts or things to consider in your feedback to have a chance to capture everyone's voice. But it seems like you are right on. It seems like we're getting a lot of glows. So great job, great discussion from this group. All right, modernizing in safe facilities. Are you ready to present your aims?
So our aims are as follows for modernized and safe facilities: to increase the allocations for operations and maintenance to the level within the foundation budget. So within the budget, to increase it to the level it should be. Identify through the school facilities and safety audit the needs of the schools and develop a plan and timetable to address those needs. Work with the community and with the Massachusetts State Legislature to increase funding for the modernization of school buildings. Reduce the number of schools that are deficient for 21st century teaching and learning, and expand further expand future-ready and career and higher education opportunities for students through additional space and community partnerships. Okay.
Okay, we got several aims for that. We already got a couple comments. I'm not sure who might have written this, but there's definitely some advocacy for libraries in there. Really appreciate the focus on making all schools efficient, so that's central air and heating, also a safe and issue concern that was illustrated by the pandemic. They liked the safety audit, safe water, lead, so looking and making sure that we are creating a safe environment. ADA compliance is a must. Getting a couple votes for all of those, so nobody's alone. Identifying greatest need and timeline for addressing them. They really liked that. Anybody want to speak out about anything? Any questions for clarification? Things to consider for oral discussion?
Just a quick question on the ADA front. I don't want to ask Brian for a specific number, but do you have any insights on, I've heard varying degrees of ADA access in the schools. Is it a widespread problem, or can you provide any context to the need there that might be helpful for us?
But just keeping in mind, like 40 of our buildings were built before 1940, right? So everything that's been built since 1990, which is about 13 buildings, are generally ADA accessible, but Burncoat High isn't, Worcester East Middle isn't. And then all of the older buildings are not, but we're making some investments. On Worcester Arts Magnet just went through a significant renovation over the summer that made the building fully ADA compliant. And this is actually one of the goals that we just spoke about with the school committee, standing committee last week, doing some school tours to show off what can be done with upgrades like at Worcester Arts Magnet.
Anyone want to add or additional questions to that? Okay, we had another with 3 votes, classrooms that support contemporary and evidence-based learning. To add into that, where was another one? Gender-neutral bathrooms. And 4 votes for a question, at which point do we look at 21st century needs and focus on facilities to meet those needs? And they liked increasing allocations of operation and maintenance budget. So I like this grow. Is there low-hanging fruit that can begin to increase learning environment equity while developing the larger plans? It's a good question. So I know that this is a huge need that we all address, and it sounds like this priority is demonstrating that it is a priority. And I think some of these questions will be answered as those measurable time-bound goals are outlined. We all know that there's always budgeting constraints to do everything all at once. And so really thinking about that prioritization, which I'm seeing in the comments. Environmental changes, friendly infrastructure, i.e. new construction should consider extreme heat in the summers. Anybody want to speak directly to one of these or any other questions?
I did just want to say, I know that I put libraries, but and I'm aware that everyone knows why. But one of the things and why I think it's important is because we're expecting teachers to, addition to all of the things that they're doing, start teaching information literacy and the ability to understand information that is factual and data-backed and research-backed, and that has never been part of traditional curriculum for schools, and then was thrust upon them, and we watched in real time that need happen when people did not believe a vaccine worked, when people did not believe in science, and it is not the fault of anyone in this room that they went away, but it is It was a long-range 40-year plan across the nation to make it less important, and we're dealing with the ramifications now. So I know it's being cheeky, but I also was getting data behind it. So I just want to be clear.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyone want to any additional comments or discussions around that?
Just an observation that issues overlap again. I heard in several groups and the notion that statements get made to all who walk through the doors about belongingness and about climate. There was several other groups who talked about, you know, there's lots of ways in which we deliver the climate message and the welcoming message and the belonging message, this being among those. So it just has come up again and again. That is a value, that notion that we want everyone to feel valued and to belong, but what are the ways in which we measure that and then make that actionable?
Thank you for all those comments. Really appreciate this engagement. This is going to be really helpful for us to continue to refine the aims. So wellness and mental health.
Okay, so we came up with the 4 aims. And so our first one is create a supportive and healthy work environment that increases job satisfaction and productivity, resulting in employee well-being. And of course, that will yield, hopefully, or at least help with student success. So when we think about health and wellness, like I mentioned earlier, it's not just about students, but it's really about our community at large, including our staff. Our aim 2, expand authentic partnerships. We had we have developed many amazing community partnerships. So we want to expand authentic partnerships with families and community partners in which collaborative initiatives ensure scholars' academic success, social, emotional, and physical well-being. We added that based on your comment. Thank you very much, by the way. Aim 3, increase social emotional learning, knowledge, and adjust systems and practices to develop a comprehensive evidence-based counseling model that addresses the diverse needs of scholars. And again, this was, we were carefully looking at our roadmap because we want to ensure that we're honoring everyone's voice in that roadmap that so many people were a part of. And so we wanted to make sure that these aims align with that roadmap. And our final aim is, we want to designate spaces that promote health and wellness through community partnerships, including the revitalization of community schools. And so those are our 4 aims, all on behalf of health and wellness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're getting a couple comments already. So 2 votes goes to the first comment of staff health and well-being is a key factor in school success. So really thinking about not just our students' well-being, but our whole ecosystem. I think that word was used. As folks write up some grows and glows to capture it, so that we can continue to consider it. Anybody want to speak to any of those aims or anything additional or bring up any clarifying questions? Anybody from the group wanted to talk a little bit more about the processes that you discussed to come up with these aims?
As I mentioned earlier, we really used the roadmap. We wanted to make sure that we honored everyone's voice in that. And so we were looking at it very carefully to ensure that we weren't diverting from it. And again, we were just making sure that anything we were doing was all on behalf of scholars. So when we help our employees and we really keep their health and wellness also at the forefront, that's also doing it on behalf of students. Again, engaging families and community partners. Again, all on behalf of students. I know we have to be student focused, and so it's everything we're doing is really to enhance everyone's well-being. And we talked about holistic health responsibility on behalf of the community at large. And so that's how we determine the aims.
And just in case, just to make sure everybody knows, there is a wellness and mental health roadmap. There's a couple copies at their table if you haven't looked at it. Something that took 6 months with multiple stakeholders. It looks like there's everyone at every table. Yeah. Great. So a couple other comments. So GLOW partnerships got 2 votes. We got improve it and expand athletic departments that provide students with holistic approaches while articulating physical and mental health. That got 2 votes as well. Got a cultural competency is key. A good reminder. Grow. How will you identify the unique needs of each group that falls within the word diverse? Does a group want to address that? I think that that's a good question that might yield some good discussion, because I think that's a question that we can ask in every priority.
Yeah. What was the part of the dialogue around diversity?
Well, I don't know. I can probably speak for the group. When we talk about diversity, it's not just racial. It's ethnicity. It's religion. It's gender. It's everything, really, right? We want to make sure that we're providing an inclusive environment that's welcoming, positive, that our students, caregivers, community partners can thrive in.
And some of that stuff will be fleshed out, not just in the goals, but really the action steps and the implementation of some of the work. And then scholar student needs include not just athletic options, but also extracurricular programs and beyond high school to include middle and elementary school. I like this. Incorporate best practices on meditation, yoga, other practices that provide skills to students to manage stress and life challenges. So a lot of good suggestions, good things to capture. I'm sure they're all part of a lot of the programming and considerations that are being there. So thank you again for the voice. Some good stuff there as well. All right, communication and ongoing engagements. Who will be presenting for you?
So we did 2 aims followed by groups of key audiences, just because we kept coming back to that and realized that it's everything kind of has to be tailored. So our first aim is increase engagement through effective communications. I know that sounds pretty broad, and we added the engagement piece as sort of a measurement as we get to the larger goal. And then aim number 2 is increase standardization and consistency of communications methods. So essentially having, it's very, having it so that, all schools, departments are kind of more on the same page, using the same tools and the same methodology to reach all audiences. And then the audiences we identified were parents/caregivers, staff, district and schools, so kind of our internal audience, community at large, external audience, and students. That's it.
All right, so we'll wait for some feedback. There's a good reminder that got put under the culture and climate, but the need simpler language to ensure stakeholders understand this work. And I think that this is something that as we finalize a draft of the strategic plan, we really need to keep going back to, because I do agree, in general, anything that is within a plan that's going to be public facing should be ensured to be in a language that's understood by all. So that's a great reminder. As we get some grows and glows up there, I think a couple are coming in. It might be under culture and climate, two-way communication. So I know that this group definitely mentioned that as making sure that all types of communication is part of. So making sure that it's not just informing, but also having that exchange, the engagement, getting feedback. We have increased communication strategies through partners, which do support identity groups. Communication is in most languages spoken at students' homes is a must. We have a GROW methodology for communication in a city with low access to internet. Language inclusivity. So anybody want to speak more to this? Anybody have any questions, clarifying? Anything to further kind of emphasize some of the pieces that we're capturing here? Does the group want to address anything right now that we're seeing up here? I like this. Create a minimum standard beginning of the school year introduction. And I think you guys talked a little bit about that standardization of making sure that it's more consistent across.
I gotcha.
Thank you. Just one thing, and it's like a nuanced thing, and I'm sure it's technically up there. But when it comes to community at large as a key stakeholder, and I'm sure you folks discussed like our community as far as like Worcester, but then like the broader community, like outside of our city, when it comes to talking about what we're doing as a system. Because I know that when we talk about like recruitment and retention of talent, even beyond the public schools, when we're talking about like at like the med school or somewhere else, we often have to talk about our schooling system. And so I think that there's like the engagement through communications of like how good the system is to our residents and our taxpayers, but there's also how we amplify that to the folks outside as we try to recruit them to become residents and taxpayers. And so I think that's equally sort of as important when it comes to expressing and describing how good our system is and is going to be.
Does anybody want to expand on that or speak to that?
We got a here over there.
Absolutely, and you're saying something that I've also been saying. I think we have to think about all our audiences, and immigrants coming here from from other countries who don't know the school system, to folks who might be buying a home and trying to decide, do I live in Worcester, do I live in Holden, or the next town over? So I think that's a great point. Thank you.
Anybody else want to add or speak anything to what they posted? Okay, some good comments for this, so definitely be considered. There's also a suggestion of consider having educational interpreters, just as healthcare interpreters in hospitals and every school. Translations are not the same as interpretations. And support and cultivate site councils. Great. Thank you so much for the engagement and communication on this one. All right, last but not least, culture and climate.
Thank you. So once again, we're the Culture and Climate Group. We had a variety of aims. One is to improve students' feelings, valued, safe, and a sense of belonging across all schools and all grade levels. So we really discussed, we talk about some of the data that we see, and the sense of belonging in our secondary schools is much lower than that of our elementary students. We're at about 61% elementary schools, but still, that's not good enough. So we really have to focus on all levels for this. The second one is to increase the use of culturally responsive pedagogy to connect learning to students' backgrounds, experience, and interests. To increase the use of alternative discipline strategies to create a more equitable environment for all of our students. And lastly, to enhance parent partnerships by providing opportunities for parents to engage in the student experience. And we talked about this. Parent engagement is not something that we can force upon parents, but the more opportunities we can provide for our parents to engage, hopefully the more individuals that will be willing to do so. So those are our 4 aims.
All right, thank you. And we're already getting some comments in. I really appreciated this one that said ongoing concern, the ambiguity of belonging. Not to put anybody on the spot, you don't necessarily have had to put this on there, but do we want to speak to that at all? Or even addressing of how we wrestle with that.
I think we left it kind of vague because we saw identifying groups of belonging or recognizing as goals rather than this kind of overarching. I think I'm speaking correctly.
So have it more general, and the aim is knowing that it would get more specific in the goals. Yes. Mm-hmm. So tough spot, parents' involvement in a world where they have to work multiple jobs. A glow of students feeling valued and safe on all levels. I thought he said glow. I was like, I'm ready. How do we capitalize on what already exists and reframe our understanding of what it means to be engaged around parent engagement? And then a glow and grow, opportunities for parents to engage. How we ask parents to engage may not be welcoming. So a couple on the parent engagement. Anybody want to speak to this or offer anything additional?
Thank you. In that context, I want to look at from the way information is given out. For example, if you had a kid comes from Africa, I want to be more specific with the number of students we deal with. In explaining to that parent or set of parents that your kid is struggling and needs some help, the way in which you're going to present that, either going to call like a drawback altogether for that family to say like, I'm being told that this person cannot make it. But the way in which you're going to present with the best choices, like we understand this kid or this set of children come from very traumatic situation, but in this country, we believe that these are the opportunities for them, and we would suggest that if the child or your children go to this opportunity or this program, they're going to be the kind of people you expect them to be in this great country. Instead of telling them that your kids are not on par with the rest of the kids, they don't understand English, they don't dress well, they don't, mingle with the rest of the kids the way the other kids mingle with them. So the mode of the communication, the choice of languages, and just the way you present it, it has a big impact on the response the parents gonna have, which I think in this room, everybody wants to see our kids from all backgrounds succeed in our Worcester public school system. Thank you.
Can I say, John, this is the second time that I've been in a meeting with you where you just absolutely brought such depth and spirit. To speak like that about children and to remind us in the room that sometimes we're received in a way that is unintended, that we are about aspiration and we need to make sure we speak in an aspirational and a partnership language. That feels really important.
Another glow, naming areas of need, growth, and working towards makes our schools being places where all of our students and families can feel where they belong and are valued. And then another comment, consistency at all levels for culture and climate. So I'm assuming that's at school levels, and maybe even at staff student levels. Anybody else want to expand on say anything else out loud, address anything? I think all of these comments and grows and glows and feedbacks and thoughts really are going to help be able to refine and build a strong plan. Thank you for the thoughtfulness and the engagement so that we can capture these and start taking them back, not just in the aims, right? But some of these are good suggestions for what are the strategies? What do we want to see in terms of the action steps? What are the things that we need to wrestle with and ask for? So really good, thoughtful comments to continue to strengthen. Another last comment was technology cannot be a barrier or obstacle to parents' communication. Definitely some layover in all of these, and each those priorities are going to be really helping and connecting to the other priorities, which is very much the intent.
Just to build on Ann's point about the action piece, naming something like positive school climate in many communities that has been seen as a nice to have. as opposed to saying that we value relationships, we value belongingness, and now what is the professional duty? Because it matters in terms of kids' mental health well-being, it matters in terms of being seen, valued, and heard, and then ultimately it has impact on how they perform and how we, as a community, wrap our arms around each child. But what are the duties to actively and intentionally create an environment in which that's the case? So it does ripple out. These pieces ripple out.
Any last comments about any of these, or just generally how we're starting to shape a good frame for the district to start to incorporate goals under?
I said to Marie, I want to say something, but I don't want to take us in a different direction. I just want to keep coming back to the purpose of a strategic plan. So this is about where we want Worcester Public Schools to be in 5 years, right? So if we can just take a look at the priorities and the aims across the board, and is this where are these the things that we need to really focus on for the next 5 years? And I'll say one more thing, and then I'll just let you look. Is that okay? Okay. So because the school committee specifically, the people that are in the room, you were identified as people, or you've been adopted, if you will, in the committee's task force. So you are like this extension of the school committee. And so they very much will take what you have shared and add to and maybe ask questions, but it's really important that this, again, is the voice of the community, and I mean the broader Worcester Public Schools community, where we're going to be in 5 years. So just take a look at it. Anything that's like missing, that's a really big deal, that no, you know what, we also need to hang our hat on here, or maybe that's not as important because there's actually a really big piece that's missing. I just think I just want to keep taking it back to the purpose of a strategic plan, 5-year plan.
And we purposely wanted to have an opportunity for people to weigh in. Some folks are more comfortable weighing in anonymously, and I really want to fight for, but I'm not really ready to have that fight out loud, right? So to that, we have those stickies. That's part of what this is about. Do not leave the room if you are saying, this is not represented and this is something I would fight for, maybe just not in a public venue. You want to offer?
Thank you. And my apologies for being in the hallway when the first group was presenting on programs, so this may have come up, and I apologize if it did. But I feel like I haven't heard a ton about tech, and I'm not sure if that was discussed during a time where maybe I just wasn't in the room, and someone can correct me. But to think of 5 years from now, right? I know what a whirlwind it was to figure out the sort of tech equity access to the internet piece 3 years ago. And then a year later, when ChatGPT first came out, how people were sort of losing their minds on what that was going to do for the system. And I think we can all agree that's not stopping, nor is it slowing down. There's only going to be more new advancements in technology. There are only going to be new programs. There's only going to be faster speeds needed to upkeep everything that happens. There's only going to be more 90-degree days in December, which is going to lead to a lot of conversation around students being in and out of school. And so with that, I do think if we're going to truly talk about where we are in 5 years, we have to have some attention paid to trends in technology and ensuring that our students and our staff and faculty are well aware of them, that they have access to them, that there's someone that can translate them. Because if not, that means our students are going to be way behind other students or some of their peers in other school systems. And so just to that point, I would say that maybe this isn't the forum for that, but I do think there should be some mention of technology and the ways in which we're ensuring we're staying on top of it.
I think that is an excellent point. And I just noticed the technology, I believe, was under the facilities piece had come up. But can you do us a favor with those? So I want to make sure we're capturing it and that nobody's losing sight of it tomorrow. Can you add that to one of the stickies on the online idea boards, and that way it's captured? Under educational programs, yep. Yeah. Thank you. Others, yeah.
Well, the camera.
There, it's just for the, yeah.
For posterity.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would also, complementing what Shay said, I would also suggest that we look at new and innovative methods of pedagogy, like the new Sparks Academy, project-based learning, in addition to instructional technology, that we look at the whole host of those and think of ways to grow and replicate those across the district.
Excellent. I also didn't hear a lot of mention around specific programming. So adding that, if we can add that to the idea boards as well under the programming section. Other thoughts? And I would just say, if you are not comfortable speaking right now, or you really just need some time to think, go ahead and make that, add a little sticky for everyone on the idea boards, or just if you're more comfortable in pen and paper, bring that sticky before you leave and just put it on the poster paper for us. Any other final thoughts?
So one thing, the special ed department and how we're incorporating that, how we're, they're such a, I mean, we have a lot of students who are in special ed, and I hear different things. You had talked at CPAC last spring about how many students we have. I've talked to a few people, and believe it or not, we might have, they say, I'm quoting somebody, so give me a little slack. 50% of boys are on the spectrum. And living in a city, somehow, it's a huge spectrum, and maybe the number's a little bit, I'm a little high there. But there are issues living in a city, living close to a highway. So somebody said to me that just 290 running through our city affects how our students, the research, again, I'm not an expert on this. Believe me, I'm not an expert on this. But looking into that and knowing where our numbers truly should be and what we're doing for them, for those students that English language learners, but as well as kids who might have challenges in how they learn. Because it's also not so much whether they can or can't learn, but are we teaching them in a way that they can learn? And that goes back to the gentleman over there, somebody from Africa is going to learn different than somebody who grew up somewhere else. Somebody who has different challenges is going to learn differently. It's not that they can't learn, it's how do we challenge them? How do we get them to, how do we get through to them? How do we individualize almost? Because there are so many diverse children who learn differently. And we sometimes lose some of them. We lose too many of them.
So I heard a lot around differentiation, individualized, personalized learning, which still falls under the programming, perhaps, group. And I would encourage us, as we're looking at the data tomorrow, to make sure that we are exploring the data based on the different groups of students to see what is the data telling us, where are we in our current state, and how are we going to address and improve around with each group? Because it's not just the one group, right? It's going to making sure that you're looking at the data points across various groups, but thinking also about individualized and differentiated, personalized approaches to learning. I didn't hear a lot around, and maybe it was embedded within the profile, in teaching and learning. Vision for learning process, yeah. So I'd love to make sure that that's embedded and tied in to the programming and the instruction piece, because that's already, you're implementing, you're starting to think through that. So just making sure there's alignment in what it is that you're already doing as well. So in terms of reviewing next steps, Paul and Jennifer will be reaching out to this group regarding next steps.
Okay, so we are on a quick timeline, as everyone knows, because we need the school committee to put their blessing on this by the end of their terms. In the next few weeks, look for us to, and I mean Paul and I and the team, to look for us to synthesize the input so far, getting that back to you with a very quick turnaround for your reaction, amplification, changes, additions, that sort of thing. And the important thing will be two things, really. One is the quick turnaround, and two is the full communication. If there's something that you're thinking, let us know, because this is the time. Okay.
Thank you. And as task force members, I'm going to remind you to just make sure that you're informed, that you're going back and you're talking to colleagues, people in your networks and your circles, giving back, getting some additional feedback. It's not baked in stone yet, right? So we want to make sure that you've had that opportunity to collect additional feedback or to really have those discussions and conversations in your inner circles and then bring it back to this group, right? Email people. Message us, message the team, message Paul, Jennifer. Like, let's make sure that we have open lines of communication so we're capturing, and that at the end you feel like, you know what, everyone's voice was heard and included as much as we can, the best of our ability throughout this process. You are going to want to keep an eye out for an invitation to review vision, mission. And then if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Ann, Scott, myself, or anyone from the district team. Tomorrow they're going to be working hard, looking at some what we think is fun data for thinking through those specific goals. And so it will be exciting to see some drafts come through that you can react to, of making sure that those goals are ambitious, but also attainable within the years, and thinking through those specific benchmarks. So as we wrap up, we always value input. So if you get a chance, please take a quick 2-minute survey for us. We're always looking to improve and make sure that it's the best that we can be.
All right, so as you're doing that, first of all, I want to thank Hanover. So if we can give Hanover a round of applause. It's not easy to take so many diverse thoughts, right, and create a meeting space that allows for many people to really come together. So thank you for being part of this with us. I want to thank each one of you again. I know that you had to put a pause on your day and what your work day entails in order to be a partner with us, and so greatly appreciate your voice and your input. And on behalf of the school committee, they too appreciate the voice and the input. They very much believe in community voice in this work. As we move forward, I kind of alluded to it this morning. I'm going to just say it again. We're going to ask to bring you back to help us with not the actual implementation, but the monitoring of it, right? But then also communicating with you and going back and forth on that, because you serve as, I think I heard Liz Hamilton say, ambassadors of the conversation. I like to think about it also as force multipliers, because there's just not enough of us out there to really share the information. So we do intend on bringing you back, and not just this school year, like as we implement this through the next 5 years, because even as we get it in place, then when we start to do it, things will change, and we need to be nimble enough in order to do that, and you are the ones that we ask to work with us on that. So thank you. Have a wonderful Tuesday, and watch for more information forthcoming. We physically won't be together moving forward yet, right? We need to get the plan in place, but there will be emails going back and forth, as I understand, through Paul and Jennifer, and then we'll let you know when the next physical time is for this collective group. All right? Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and if you don't mind kind of bussing your spaces as well, that would be great. Thank you.